microphone. Welcome, fellow druids. We're going to talk about Crucible Guard. They just updated in War Room as of the time of this recording. And I think I updated this like 5 minutes ago, so bear with me on that. This is going to be a pretty preemptive discussion on what to expect from them. I'm not going to go super deep. There's no like meta around them to really talk about. So a lot of what I'm going to do is kind of look through the casters, kind of give an overview of what the faction does and like what we should do to approach it. So I just want to talk about them in general. So there's a lot of the discussion around them is that they are, quote, ranged cricks. I think there's some, I think that's true to a pretty decent degree. I don't know that they're going to feel as oppressive as cricks, but I guess we'll see. And they knew that this faction was range focused going in, so it's meant to be strong, but it's balanced around that fact. Most of the pieces in this army are bringing guns. Just gonna look through. They definitely have some melee stuff as well, but excuse me, if you look at their units, I think the only unit that does not have a ranged weapon is the assault troopers, one of the medium-based infantry units. They do have a number of mercs they can bring in. They do have a ranking officer who is very strong, actually. So I think you're going to see that happen frequently. And I think that was a interesting design, strong and interesting design move that gives them access to a bunch of other things. So they don't need to necessarily produce more releases, but can still get more faction benefits, have some more flexibility, and just with the nature of it being like a War Machine faction, I think it really fits what they're doing here. So, and again, as we look, their battle engines are going to be pretty key. A lot of guns on those. And then on their Warjacks, in fact, I think pretty solid number of ranged attacks spread around there, including on their Colossal. And their casters have a lot of ranged attacks. So just high level to start off the discussion, and I should make sure that I'm making sound. I am. Excellent. To start off the discussion, the warlocks that are going to be strong and the lists that are going to be strong into Crucible Guard at a super high level, right? We're not even talking about casters yet. We're not talking about theory. We're not even talking about what's in the list. But casters that have ranged defense are going to be incredibly strong. I expect Kruger 2 will be absolutely strong into them. There aren't too many of their guns. I'm going to kind of check on this, but they do have a lot of sprays, so he won't be able to affect that, but they don't have anything that really goes past range 14. Last I checked, I will double check. We'll talk about casters and stuff, so that may not be entirely true, but maybe the Dragon's Breath Rocket is. Nope, range 14. So for the most part, they're bringing range 14 or less guns, and some of those guns are actually very short. Like the Rocket Men have their Gravity Bomb, which is range 4. You're going to make that range -1. I don't think it goes to -1, but I do think it goes to 0. Something we should determine. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of units like that are going to be rendered pretty ineffective by Kruger 2. But I do think the rest of our ranged troopers are going to be pretty good as well. Or, sorry, ranged defenses are going to be pretty good as well. Kruger 1 seems like he'll be pretty strong. I think that they have some notion of clouds. Yeah, like the Alchemists do smoke bombs, they have Gorman, things like that. And then the ranged defense again. So Gale Winds is going to be a pretty incredibly strong spell. I would say no blast damage from Balder 1 may have some benefits, as well as the cover. We're going to see I'm just kind of going through the list. The stealth from Grail's feet will probably be strong. Baldur 2, of course, with the armor usually is strong. We'll see how that plays, but I imagine it'll be strong here. The rock wall will be good there too. Kaya 2's battle group stealth. Fog of War on Kaya 3 and Morvana 2. I'm forgetting something. Morvana 1 should be just fine herself at the very least. And if you're bringing stealth models, I don't recall, and we'll have to see as time goes on, I don't recall them having a ton of anti-stealth. I could be mistaken there. But of course, then there's other things. Forest, they definitely have no mitigation. That's not true. I don't think they have mitigation for... There was one of these jacks has a really weird spray. Yes, the Retaliator does remove clouds, but not... So we've talked about this before, but keep in mind, if you have a Burning Earth template on the table, it is a cloud, and anything that removes a cloud, like Adrea or the Retaliator spray, will remove that for us. So don't plan your turn around that if... and that includes the clouds that come with the terrain. So don't plan your turn around those particular things, if that type of effect is in play. But yeah, so forests from Wormwood should be strong. Baldur 1 as well, strong. The Sentry Stone forests should be just as useful as they always have been. Shield guards are going to be strong, so the Wold Whites, Wold Guardians, of course. So really anything that's going to help you manipulate the ranged game to your favor is going to be something you're going to want to take a look at. Just even without us like really talking in any more depth than that, I think that, and a lot of this is stuff Circle's already good at, right? So I think I'm not really anticipating, what I'm sort of getting at initially is that I'm not really anticipating that we're going to have a ton of changes to our lineup in order to play into them. We'll see. I could be wrong. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. So we're just going to go kind of quick through the casters. I'm not going to break down every model in this at the moment. I have not looked at this enough to be able to do that. I did not follow the CID enough to be able to do that. So I did play a couple games, but they were into lock and convergence. So yes, as a note, we'll talk about it when we get to her, but that does add a Crucible convergence warcaster as well. So we're just going to go down the line. They've got Silvestro, and this isn't going to necessarily be a totally like every component of the caster. Stat line wise, he's pretty average across the board. He's a 7 focus caster. He's got a grenade. This is the one you'll hear them call Super Gorman sometimes. He's got a sword that he should never ever use. Most of the things in this faction have either Alchemical Mask or I think there's another one. This is the one where he can draw line of sight through clouds, so something to remember. He does have basically an effect that he can do to give himself super stealth, and I call it that because it's basically stealth, except for it is not called stealth, so things that mitigate stealth get around it. He has a way to speed up his battle group, or construct models rather, which mostly is his battle group. He gets a free spell if he wants, so he can pick one of those each turn. His spell list is pretty impressive. He has Admonition, he has Explosivo, or Explosivo, depending on how you want to say that. He has Revive, and they have some pretty hardy medium-based infantry, as I was talking about. They all have Carapace. So as another note, I think their medium-based infantry are going to be pretty popular, as well as a few other things. So I don't know that while we mitigate ranged attacks, we probably don't want to overly rely on them playing into Crucible Guard. He has Purification, which is incredibly strong, but he does have upkeeps and stuff, so he'll have to really decide when he wants to use it. Stygian Abyss, or he has 3 upkeeps. Stygian Abyss, you've seen that on the Coven. It's a really strong spell though. Blinds are very good right now, and it's also just a ranged on power 12, and they do have arc nodes. It's a weird arc node, but they do have it. And then Transmutation, which is kind of his unique spell, and this one's one that as Circle we definitely want to pay attention to. It can be cast either on an enemy unit or on a friendly unit. If it's on a friendly unit, that unit gains +2 strength, +2 defense, and Pathfinder. And if it's on an enemy unit, it's basically the opposite, where they suffer -2 strength and defense and lose Pathfinder. So keep an eye on that spell. It can only be on one thing at a time, so I think a good player knowing where exactly to put that spell in any given game is going to be important. But that's definitely one to keep track of. Our living beasts in particular will not like being hit with this, even once they gain Pathfinder, obviously. Like a Stalker with -2 strength and defense is pretty sad, and he definitely wanted Pathfinder. And his feat is, I'm just reading it, is basically Signs of Portents plus friendly faction models heal D3. Oh no, I'm sorry. When an enemy model is destroyed in its control range, a friendly faction model will remove D3 damage with it. So this is going to be strong with his medium base infantry. It's going to help his jacks. So if he gets a big turn where this kills a lot of stuff, he can negate sort of a bigger turn you have by a little bit. But really, it's you're going to see probably the Signs of Portents effect going out first. So he looks really, really strong. I think he's just got a very good toolboxy spell kit. He's got good abilities. He's just solid. But again, a lot of what he's bringing is going to be ranged units and ranged things. As long as we're not overly relying on purification or on things that can be purified, we should be okay. And then watch out for where transmutation goes. That spell and a couple others, Enfeeble, Crippling Grasp, and Rebuke, are definitely reasons to start considering Eilish in lists, possibly outside chance of Throg. That's about it. Or if you're playing Chromac 1. So that's Celestro. Lucas Moray, this is the juicer, so he's relatively, again, average stat line. He's a little higher mat. He's got a hand cannon, he's got a POW 13 sword, he's focus 5 is all. But he does have an effect called Juicer, which is kind of confusing, but basically he can go up to... I'm going to read this rule because it's weird to me. So he has a thing that helps us with Little Alice, but at the start of each of your control phases, you can place up to 3 juice tokens on him. For each juice token, he gains +1 focus. At the end of each of the model's activations, he suffers 1 damage for each juice on it. Model cannot spend focus to reduce his damage. After suffering, this model can remove D3 juice tokens. So this went through a lot of iterations in CID, I recall. But basically, this juice is going to be hurting him. He can't remove all of the tokens. Plays up to... I'm just trying to see if he can get more. The way this reads, it says you can place up to 3. So it seems to me where he can actually have more than 3 juice tokens. For each juice token placed on this model, it gains +1 focus. It sounds to me where you put 3 juice tokens on his first control phase, he'd remove D3. So let's say that's only 1, and then put 3 again, and he could continue to get +1 focus. We'll see. We'll see if there's a ruling on it. Anyways, point being is he can sort of take a risk to get more focus, which is going to allow him to do more casts and whatnot. And then he can additionally, if Alice switches their caster attachments in there, he can remove more. And his spell list is also pretty amazing. So Burning Ash, he's got the Cloud Wall that you'd see from like Zadesh, Protector Guy, High Reclaimer. Disintegration, which is a unique spell to him. It's a 3-cost range 10 POW 13 nuke, and the model hit suffers -2 armor. And if you're boxed by that spell, you're RFP'd. So that spell actually is functionally a POW 15. This is in a roundabout way the most powerful direct nuke spell for 3 costs in the game. Obliteration, it would be technically better, but it costs more, and I think it has a shorter range. So this is functionally a range 10 POW 15, and then other things are going to take more damage as well because that debuff's going to last. Single target debuff. Ice Force Hammer, you know about that. Iron Flesh, and Mirage. So a pretty strong spell list. In my opinion, I think Disintegration is definitely really strong. But again, everything on this list is very incredible. And then his feat is called Overdose, which says gain 1 focus point for each juice token currently on Demore. So maybe I was right, and that is supposed to intentionally go over the focus. It seems kind of crazy to me that he could be, let's see, if you did 3, he'd go up to 8. Say he removes 1, goes to 7, do 3. He could be focused 10. Or if it's turn 3, theoretically he could be 12. If I'm reading this right, I'm not guaranteed that I am. Anyways, he's going to be slinging spells at you. Disintegration is definitely something he's going to be trying to take advantage of, which is going to be really strong for the range game. This is one of the places where some of our anti-cloud tech is going to be pretty key. So Grail, Kruger 1, and Adrea definitely pretty strong here. Again, both these casters that I just mentioned, I think are going to come down to, they remind me a lot of, if you look at Grimkin, the Dreamer, the King of Nothing, mostly those two, where he specifically reminds me a little more of them. The other casters sort of a cross between them and Heretic, where he's just got a really strong effect on the game that's very straightforward, but it's also a lot of choices, and I think a skilled player knowing what spells to use when are really going to be what is the big difference maker here. So very strong caster. Aurum Lacanum and Athanor Locke. So she's the Crucible Guard and Convergence caster. She's got a couple Power 12 flamethrowers, spray 6s. Speed. I'm going to mention the Mat and Rat here. She's Speed 5, Mat Rat 5, Defense 14, Armor 17. And she's got a couple Power 12 fists and sprays. She's Focus 7. She gives out Precision Strike as your Field Marshal, so they kept making sure that all Convergence casters have Field Marshals, so she has one. She repairs. She can repair as an action. She upkeeps spells for free. Upkeeps spells for free. Her spell list is Bombshell, which is a weird nuke spell that throws things. I don't think it's unique to her. I'm not positive. Engine of Destruction is the important one. So if you're playing against Convergence, realize immediately that means they go up to Mat 9 on any turn that she would like. And with Jackhammer and Redline, the next 2 spells, and Road to War and Sentry, she is going to support a very Warjack heavy list in Convergence. Yeah. So everything about her is Warjack centric. I honestly think it's going to take a while, if it ever happens, for Crucible Guard players to actually pick her up. I think you're going to see her being tested very quickly, though, in Convergence. Pardon me. And her feat is the longest thing ever. I don't know if this is... Nope, that's just bright lights. Yeah, anyway. No, I can't. Alright, anyway. It basically takes up so much space I just about have to scroll. But we're going to read it because when I played against this, it was A, confusing, and B, pretty strong in the circle list I played. It may not say that way, so... enemy upkeep spells and animi immediately expire, so that's important for us in that things like a lot of our, any of our defensive tech, if it's an upkeep, you're going to lose that, which much of it is. Or you have to recast things like Synergy or whatever. Animi, mostly Spiny Growth and Elusive are the 2 that come to mind there. Being expired for 1 round, when an enemy model is forced to cast a spell or spends 1 or more focus or fury points while in locks control range, so it won't double dip. If you cast a spell that costs focus, you only get one. You can place one catalytic token model on a model in Locke's battle group currently in your control range. If a model casts a spell by spending Focus or Fury, it only triggers once, so just clarifying. Model cannot have more than 3 at any time. Model gains +1 defense and armor for each token on it. The models of a weapon with more than one of these tokens gain damage type magical and remove a token from each effective model at the end of its activation. So there's a lot going on there. What it does mean, so it triggers kind of like Asphyxia's 3, but it's going to pump up the defensive stats of their army. And what it in general means is, A, you're going to have to be very careful with your activations. B, you are using, this is a list where if we get, and this is probably some Devourer's Host stuff for later, but if we get to a point where we can play infantry into this, we much prefer to do so because it's going to mitigate that feat. Whereas if we need to use our War Beast, we're going to have to play very carefully, because if even Convergence Jacks getting +3 defense and armor are going to be incredibly hard to take down, and that buff is going to last for a while. And then also damage type magical could matter. It's not a big deal to us. And the Warjacks in that are already going to be very good at killing our War Beasts, because they can go up to Mat 9, so the Living Beasts are not going to like it. Redline means they're getting more damage. So our Wolds aren't going to necessarily like it. It's by no means an unwinnable matchup. Just those are things you're going to want to be keeping track of playing into Ms. Locke. Okay. We're going to keep powering through, though, because I don't want this to be the longest thing ever. Captain Ira, I may or may not have pronounced that correctly, McKay. She's the Battle Engine Warcaster, so she's Speed 6, Mat and Rat 7, Defense 10, Armor 19, and has 36 boxes. And then she has a whole bevy of guns, of which 3 of them are sprays. So Kruger doesn't love that nearly so much. And they're like one of each, one fire and 2 cold. She has bulldoze, she has dual attacks, so she can charge and make her attacks, reposition. She has attack types she can choose with the biggest gun. One of them will cause models losing corporeal, not a big deal to us. One will cause flare, which is a big deal to us, and it just requires hit, not direct hit. So if you're relying on stealth against her, you're going to have to be very careful with how you're reliant on stealth. And then one of them is a Scather. She also has a knockdown. She has Ram, a la Morvana or the Guardian, and she has Bulldoze. She also brings Failsafe, which is just an arm buff. Jumpstart, which is the battle group spell that helps standing up and facing the right way. So again, not something Kruger's going to love. Mobility, so the jacks she does bring are going to be moving, as well as her going up to speed 8, that means. And return fire. And then the feat is that her friendly faction models get run and gun and damage type magical. And then additionally, when a friendly faction construct model, so this includes the battle engines, which also have a lot of guns, make a damage roll against an enemy model in McKay's control range, the damage roll is boosted and lasts for 1 turn. So this list is going to have, whatever list she brings is likely to have one very massive turn of ranged attacks. So if we can bring things that will negate that, we're going to be in a rather strong position. And I mean, that's really the crux of it. You're going to need to be able to negate enough ranged, and you're going to need to be able to kill trains. And they're the same stat block as her, 10, 19, 36 boxes. So that's pretty doable for a lot of our lists. Yeah. And then Marshal General Baldwin Gearhart and Mr. Clog. Moderate speed, decent, high Mat and Rat, otherwise normal stats for caster. He has battle plans, so one of them does basically Deadeye, one of them does Reciprocate, which lets him shoot back. It's a single model for that. And then Operations Command, which basically is Tactician. And then he has the thing where he doesn't suffer gas effects. He is veteran leader for faction warriors, so they're going to be more accurate. So he's really wanting to amp up those ranged infantry options they have. He has boundless charge, deceleration, hot shot, and snipe, so he's all about shooting. Snipe, something we definitely should keep track of. If Crew 2 is your plan, snipe could kind of foil that. And then his feat is fox hunt, which is basically just prey against a chosen thing, and then it can cycle until the end of the turn. So again, a lot of ranged damage coming out here. Oh, and I didn't go over his arms caddy. He has a bunch of different guns. He can pick which one is best for the occasion. I'm not going to necessarily go through all of them. So I don't want to keep pushing forward on this video. We will definitely get a little bit more into this as these start getting played. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a delay than Grimkin because the release schedule looks a little bit more wonky. But look for them to be coming soon. Start thinking about how you're going to play into that, what will be strong and what won't be. I do think your usual sort of suspects that you're playing into things like Signar and Protectorate are probably going to be Retribution, are probably going to kind of be what you're leaning towards here. But the one thing being, it will depend on how much of their heavy infantry they're playing, where we sit with our ranged attacks, right? So like a lot of Kruger lists right now, for example, are bringing like World Weirds and Fulcrum, myself included, and we'll have to see if there's too many ranged attacks in a list like that to play, you know, like how strong or weak that makes this, things like that. So, and there's definitely a bunch of unique pieces I didn't talk about, like their Journeyman Warcaster or any of their infantry in particular, and I think, like most small factions, there's a lot of power in a smaller number of models because they know they're not really releasing a lot more stuff for this faction. So anyway, as always, if you like the content that you see, please subscribe to my channel, share it out there, there's a link to the Facebook group and my Discord channel in the show notes. I'm on Twitter, Shadow Caveman. Love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts on Crucible Guard and Circle. Or even just if you are a Crucible Guard player and you have some thoughts, so or maybe you think I got something wrong. Anyways, thanks for watching.